Okay, let's get back to talking about inversions. So what inversions are is it's a way to make something it's a way to make a chord progression sound a lot more musical. And what I mean by that is if we just play these chords as is in a different order, it sounds very blocky, right? Like we play a chord and then we play another chord and then we play another chord. It doesn't flow like music flows. It's not until we start to incorporate inversions that it starts to flow a little bit better. And when I hear tracks by people, um, especially people doing like dance music with like heavy synth lines and stuff like that, I hear block chords all the time. And I think this could sound so much better if they understood how inversions work. It would just make your track go from like a C minus track to like an A plus track just by incorporating inversions. It's really simple. It's a simple idea, but it's something that you need to know about. And I'm trying to do a favor to the electronic music world by like telling you about this, about how inversions work. So let's start by, let's just build a chord progression here. Okay, so let's take my one chord, we'll leave out my 2 chord, we'll use 3, we'll get rid of the 4 chord, and we'll use 5 and 6. So we'll get rid of those. Let's rearrange these a little bit. Okay, let's take our 6 chord, put it right there, and then maybe our 5 chord, and put it right there. Just because, remember what I said, we don't like chord progressions typically that just kind of go in order. We like it to move around a bit. So let's now take this, and I'm going to just arrange these to get a little more time each. So I'm just going to stretch them out. Okay, now we have a chord progression. Let's call this our chord progression of our song. Let's hear it. Slow it down a little bit. Okay, now what we're hearing is that thing that I call that really blocky sound, right? And it's because all the chords we're hearing are in root position. So what root position means is that the root of the chord is at the bottom. All of these, we know this is a C major chord because C is at the bottom. This is an A minor chord, A is at the bottom. This is an E minor chord, E is at the bottom. What we want to do here is find the path of least resistance, is the way I like to think about it. So, for example, between these 2 chords, our first and second chord here, we have a big leap. So let's make that leap not so big by just using octaves. So let's take this high note and shift it down an octave. Now this is an inversion, right? Because the root is not at the bottom. There's fancy terms for this, but for what kind of inversion, but I don't really care about that right now. What I care about is that this is inverted now because the root of the chord is not at the bottom. This is still an A chord. This is still an A minor chord, but we have E at the bottom. But you see what that did is it made this E flow nicely between all 3 chords. And that's going to sound better. I can actually make this even better. Watch this. Let's take the C down an octave. Ooh, and look at that. Now we see that the difference between these 2 chords is actually only 1 note. And that's going to make this just flow so much better. Let's see what we can do with this 3rd chord. Let's take this B down an octave. Okay, now this C just moves down a half step. The E stays the same. The G goes back to where it was, right? Goes back to a G. That's nice. So very minimal motion between here, right? Now remember, I'm not changing any notes. I still have the exact same chords. The only thing I've changed is the organization of the notes. I haven't added or taken away any notes. I've just moved them around a little bit. Let's try taking this D down. Okay, that's pretty nice. I think I can get this B down also. Ooh, look at that. So now these don't require any motion, nor do these. So let's hear what that sounds like now. Okay, so now the whole thing is more flowing. It's less blocky. If I wanted to make it even more flowing, let's do this. Let's change our piano. Let's go out of a piano and let's put some kind of synthesizer on it. Let's just do some kind of pad. That's not very interesting. Nah, let's try that. Okay. So let's listen to what this sounds like on this pad. I'm gonna slow it down. Okay, that's a fairly nice chord progression. Now let me play it for you without the inversions. Okay, here we are back in root position. So this is what it sounds like in root position. Okay, and inverted. It's just so much smoother that way and so much more held together and elegant that way than the big block way of root position. Now keep in mind that I still have one chord, this one, in root position. This is still in root position, so there's nothing wrong with root position. It's the jumping around that makes the kind of not elegant, clunky sound. So what I did is I just took this one and then I just rearranged the octaves of all the other chords to line up to fit really nicely into that first chord. And that's what inversions are. It's just jumping around the octaves of the notes. We're not changing any notes. We're just reordering the notes so that they flow nicely between each other. That is inversions.